Alright, I think we're good now. So, where did we leave off? Okay, I just generated my project, right? Okay, I just generated a new test app. Okay, there's nothing in here. It's a standard Rails application. If I start it up, okay, right away I can go to it and we have our default Rails page saying, hey, you don't have anything. That's essentially what they're saying. It's almost kind of like a mocking thing too. It's like they know you don't have anything. It's kind of rude, but
what else should they think that?
I don't know. I just felt like giving them a hard time, so I knew I had this still up somewhere, but okay. Okay. Now, clean app. Let's generate a home page. How do I generate a home page?
Rails G. Index. We're going to do a home/index.
Home/index. Okay. So what do we need to type here?
Rails home. No, sorry.
Rails G. What do I need? If I say Rails G, I get back all the generators that I have available to me, right? So,
oh, sorry. Yes, Rails G.
well, supposedly when Spring doesn't decide to act up.
Where am I? Stop what you're doing.
Oh, you've got a lot of apps running. Do you have a kill all? Yeah, you do.
Don't kill all.
Damn it. You're gonna make me do it.
What are you trying to do?
I gotta stop all these Spring processes because too many of them are running. It's because you leave everything open, and we finally overtaxed the flux capacitor. And
What is Spring?
Spring is something that runs Rails in the background for you after you start it up. I don't like it. Okay. So if I type Rails G, I get back the list of generators that I can use, right? So how do I generate a home page? We've only done it umpteen billion times.
Generate controller. Home. Space index.
That's right.
I said controller, but I was
No, I didn't hear you. Okay. So what's the next thing I need to do if I want to use this?
Go to the routes.
Okay.
Open your welcome root.
Uncommented.
Uncomment it. Open it. Change it.
Change it. Change it to what?
Home.
Okay.
If you like.
I would like. All right. So now if I start it, I should have a home page. Okay. Now, let's generate. Let's look at our generators. Everything okay? I got no response on that. That's concerning.
Well, I'm hitting Rails G controller index and it keeps giving me my help. Rails G. I'm spelling it right, I promise. Control. running the server, is that will that mess you up if you're running the server? Yeah, it will. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, so I'm going to add a gem here called active model serializers. Okay. Active underscore model underscore serializers. The spelling is important. And we'll worry about the rest of it later. Okay. I'm going to bundle install. And because I didn't have the active model serializers gem, it's not just going to add it to my set, it's going to go install it for me on my system. So it's installed now, it's bootstrapped into my system. And I want to generate, let's generate, why not? We've been using contacts for a while, why don't we keep going with them? So I'm going to generate contacts, but I want to use something that we haven't used before as a generator. And what I'm going to generate is a resource. Okay? Now, we've talked about what a resource is before. What they mean by resource here is they mean, okay, so we've generated scaffolds, right? A scaffold is everything under the sun, right? It generates your model, it generates your migration, it generates your controller, it generates your views, it adds it to the routes file. It basically says, here, let me do this for you. Okay? When we generate a model, all it generates is the model and the migration, right? If we generate the controller, all it generates is the controller. What a resource does when you generate a resource is it generates everything up to the controller. Okay? So it will generate the model, it'll generate the migration, it'll generate the controller, but it won't generate the views, right? And it won't generate the actions for your controller. It leaves it up to you to do that. So basically you're saying, I want to make a resource for this setup. And it gives you what you need to get going for that. So we're going to generate a resource for contacts, and we'll do first name, we'll do last name, we'll do email, and I'll show you a trick with email. It's cool, I think, but I'm a nerd, so what do I know? Alright, and we're going to migrate. Okay, so we have our stack. If I come into the code here, I now have my routes file. I have a resource added for contacts. So if I said rake routes here, it'll show that I have routes for everything to do with contacts, right? Okay, but I don't want everything to do with contacts to start with. I want to start with just an index. That's the only thing I want. I want just an index action to start with. So when I run rake routes now, much thinner list, right? Okay. So it generated my model, okay, and it generated my controller. So you'll notice the controller is empty. We have no actions specified here, okay? And it's because we said we wanted a resource. We didn't want a scaffold. So what I'm going to do is we said we wanted an index action, right? So I'm going to make an index action. Yeah.
Is it plural serializers?
In the gem file?
Active model serializers.
Yes, active model serializers. Yeah. Okay. Now, it also generated something else for us. Okay? And it's because we added the active model serializers gem to the project before we generated the resource. So if I come back here and we look at what all was generated, you'll look and see that we actually got something called a contact serializer. Okay? It got its own folder, serializers, under app. So we have underneath this app folder an additional folder called serializers that now has a contact serializer. This contact serializer is a class, just like any other Ruby class. It's used just like any other Ruby class, but we specify on this guy what attributes we want to send out into the wild in our JSON response. Okay? So by default, it's including the ID, the first name, the last name, and the email. We'll leave that to start with, but we'll change it here later. Okay? So in here, what do we do usually to make our system show the contacts that we've got in the system on an HTML page?
Say that again.
What do we normally do to show the contacts that we have in our system on an HTML page?
A list?
We usually make a list of contacts, for instance, right?
Right.
Okay. So how would I do that here?
In Ruby? No.
In Ruby. This isn't hard. What do we normally put in here? Well, no. What do I normally put in the index? This is where we're returning our list, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do I do that? How do I get the list of contacts? You're blanking, man. You're blanking, man. Anybody else? We've done it every time so far. Okay, well, render's going to be something we need here, but not yet. What do I use to get all the contacts that are in my system? It's one line of code.
User.all.
Not user.all.
Contacts.all.
Contact.all. Okay,
Sorry.
right? That goes and queries the database and gets all the contacts, right? Right now that's an empty list, but that's okay, we'll fix that. So let's assign that to a variable, okay? That's what we normally have there, right? Even when we're doing an HTML response. So that's the same, we're doing the same thing. We're just returning it through a different medium, okay? So by default, if this were to run, it would try to serve an HTML page, right? It'd look for a view called index. I don't want it to do that. Okay? So what I'm going to do is explicitly do what Nick said, and I'm going to use the render command. Okay? So I'm going to tell it that I'm rendering JSON. That JSON is going to be the list of contacts, and I'm going to go ahead and specify, since this is an API, I'm going to take control of this myself. I'm going to go ahead and specify that I'm returning with an OK status. What is an OK status code? What number is it?
202. No. 200.
200. Okay? That means that it went well, right? Everything worked okay. So if I'm successfully returning back the list of contacts, regardless of whether it's empty or not, I want to tell the user, hey, this response went okay. So I'm specifying status okay there. Now I'm going to say each serializer, and I'm going to specify the serializer that I want to use, which is the name of this class here, contact serializer. All right? So I say each serializer because I want that serializer to be used on each contact in the list. Okay? So how do we test this now?
Oh, we'd have to create a contact, wouldn't we?
We have to create a contact.
At least one.
At least one.
We'd seed it.
Let's seed a contact. I keep opening the wrong thing. Okay. So how many contacts should we have?
Oh. I was going to say contact contact.create.
Let's just, huh?
3.
Okay, let's make 3. Why not? Oh my God.
Wants you to give it a variable.
Dude, what is wrong with your Sublime?
He touched it last.
I didn't do this. Go away. Okay.
It's smarter than.
Wow.
I don't know if free time will work, but
I don't think it will. I got rid of an extra character, didn't I? Okay. Now, 3 times.
it's the only time I'll get something right.
So we'll create a contact and so I said we'd do something a little bit different. Let's make an email address that's specific to the contact we're creating so that the email address kind of matches up with the person's name. Okay? So what we're going to do is I'm going to generate the first name. I'm going to generate the last name. And then what I'm going to do is generate the email here. And I'm going to pass the first name and the last name there in as a parameter in a string. Okay? It's going to take that name and it's going to look at it and go, okay, well, I'm going to use this name to generate the email address. So now I can just say that the first name for the contact is the first name, the last name is that last name variable, and the email is going to be that email variable. And so if I rake DBC,
Did you add Faker?
yeah, I did.
No.
Okay, and so in here, if I look at all of my contacts, we'll see that now I have email addresses that kind of match the name of the person that they're for, right? So the documentation has a lot of little hidden gems there that if you read it, there's a lot of stuff you can do. So let's start our server back up now that we have some data, okay? And we're on our home page, it's working fine. What route to show contacts?
Slash contact.
Contacts. There's our JSON. Okay? It's not very pretty, but it works, right? Okay. Now, the reason why it's not pretty is because we're viewing it through an HTML browser. Okay? There's other tools that you can use to get this back. One of them is called Postman. I don't know if you have it. Do you have it installed, Macy?
Postman?
Postman?
I don't think so. I have something like it.
Okay. Well, I'll show them how to get it. So, if we go to the Google Web Store, there's a tool called Postman available. It's right here. It's a developer tool, and you can just say Add to Chrome, and it will download and install. And then you have that app here, okay? It'll give you its own window here. And what you can do is it'll let you build your REST API requests right here and test them. So the URL I'm hitting is localhost 3000 contacts. It's a GET request. I can change it to any one of these verbs. Like I said, there's a lot of them, okay? We can provide parameters if we want. We don't need any for this though. And so I'm just going to hit send. And there's our JSON response.
So cute.
Okay. It'll even show us the headers we got back. Okay. All the headers that the server filled in for us. Okay. Get rid of that. It shows us the type. If we knew it was a different type, we could put it in a different format. It's not. It's JSON. Okay? So it shows us that our status is okay. 200 okay, because that's what we returned, right? Let's go back in and let's say, okay, well, we wanted to sort this information by the most recently added. Okay? How would we do that?
Timestamp.
Let's say on the front end, we wanted to sort it by the most recently created. Then we'd need to use timestamps, okay? We're not going to sort it here on the back end. We want to sort it somewhere in a client somewhere, okay? So we don't need to do anything regarding sorting here, but the front end would definitely need the timestamp then, right?
Yes.
So all I have to do is go into the serializer. Because Active Record gave us created at and updated at timestamps for our models already, all I have to do is say, okay, we'll include created at. Alright, I come in here and I restart my server. Let's run this again. There we go. The created at timestamp. Okay. Not too bad, huh? I don't think so. Yeah, okay. So I just added it to the list. Serializers, it's one of the few things that if you change one, you have to restart your server. Okay? Otherwise it won't reflect the change in your next request. The reason why is because the serializers are loaded one time on an application startup, and they're cached, and they're just reused. And so changing the file won't reload anything. Okay? Let's show a single contact. Let's make one that'll show a single contact. How do I show a single contact in JSON? What's the first thing I need to do to make an action to return a single contact? Same thing we've been doing. What is it?
To return a single contact is like whatever contact ID.
Yeah. So what do I do?
Are we rendering again, or are we just showing?
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
It doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
I still have to get it the same way.
Yeah.
I still have to add the route in the same way. I still have to make the controller action in the same way. There's only one part of this whole equation that's changing, and that's how I'm returning it, right? So what do I need to do? What am I missing here?
A request for the ID that you're looking for?
Okay, so first thing I ought to do is I ought to add my route, huh? This is a show route, right? So if I come back in here and I do rake routes, okay, I have a show action now, and the route shows that it is in fact expecting an ID now. Okay, right? So I'll go ahead and start this guy back up. All right, so that's done. Well, it's going to want to show action, right? What do I want here? How do I find a contact?
Contacts.
Oh, you
We're
do
gonna
the
do it.
params? You do the params?
Use the params. How do I do it?
So find, I can't remember.
Well, I'm looking for a contact, right?
Right.
So I'm going to find the contact. So I'm finding the contact. I'm passing the params ID in, right? And I'm going to set that equal to just a contact variable. All right. Now, this is the part you don't know, so I'm going to go ahead and type this in. I'm going to return that one contact in JSON. I'm going to use the same status code. This time, instead of saying each serializer, I've only got one item, so I'm just going to say serializer. Okay. Now, if I come here, I look and I say, okay, well, I have a contact with an ID of 2. So let's pull back the contact with the ID 2. So I change it up here in my URL. Right there. And I hit send. There it is. The contact. We change it to 1. I get the 1 back. I can go back and get the whole list if I want to. Okay? It's identical to the way the views work. We're just changing the delivery medium, right? This would be an index page, right? This would be a show page with that guy, right? The only difference is that if I were creating one, okay, I wouldn't need a new screen. I wouldn't need an edit screen, okay? Because someone's going to formulate this JSON and just send it to the server, right? So let's do that. So I want to create a contact. What's the first thing I need to do?
Set up a method for creating contact.
Okay, we'll set up a method for creating the contact. Okay, that's a decent place to start. Next.
At contact equals
Contact.
contact new. Whatever parameters you want.
Okay, so let's
Name,
we'll
email.
we'll call it safe parameters, and I'm going to make a method down here that does safe parameters, and then we'll say remember this whole permit list and stuff. Okay, so I'm going to permit the first name, the last name, the email, and that's all I'm going to permit. Okay, so now I have a contact. What do I do with it?
You want it. Well, you need to show it to us.
Well, not yet. I haven't created it yet.
You just okay.
I just newed it up. It's got the data. I haven't saved it yet,
Okay.
right? I need to try to save it. So if the save works successfully, I need to return one thing. If it fails, I need to return another thing.
Let's do a status of. Let's return the status.
What do I need to return if it's successful?
Oh, the name of the contact or the contact.
I need to return the contact, right? So I'm going to render the contact. What's the status for successfully creating something?
An okay. Oh.
200.
No, 200 is okay. That's not the right one.
A
But they were
204.
returning okay.
No, I said if it saved okay.
Oh,
A successful creation returns what?
I say 204.
No, 204 is no content. You're right though. It starts with a 2.
202.
Nope. So close. It's a 201. 201 is a successful create, and they have it also alias to just created right there, just like okay. Okay. So, we're going to provide the serializer, contact serializer right here. All right. So, successfully creating one, I need to add my route still, right? So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to add create. Okay. If I look at the list and I want to create one, okay, I want to do a what kind of action?
To create one.
To create a contact, what type of action is this? What type of verb do I want to use for my request?
We're gonna post it.
We're going to post it. That's right. Is this the right URL?
No. What should be? I thought it. Okay, never mind.
Well, no.
I thought it would be context. I guess we didn't create a new.
We're going to create it in this request. So because I'm creating one, I don't have an ID yet. It's going to give me an ID back when it saves it, right? So this is the right URL. Now though, I need to provide I don't know where it is. Where's the body at for writing this stuff? Am I missing this, Macy? You see it somewhere? Where do I add the JSON body at?
That's not it there.
No, that's the return from the previous request.
Oh.
So that should blow up. Now where is the...
Click on this guy. No.
That's the drop down.
What about the params? Nothing.
No, that's the key.
Can you click on type?
That's waiting on this. See. Let's see.
What's under the send drop down?
Send drop down? Where's the send drop down? Oh, that's asking if you wanted to save it somewhere.
No, not the save, the send. No, that's the save. Click on the send drop.
Oh, this right
Yeah.
here. Sorry. Send and download. So it'll send it and download the response.
You sure it's not just reusing this? No?
Yeah.
What the fudge?
Well, those were not my exact words, but I concur. There it is. Where the hell was it? I guess this was like highlighted or something. Okay. All right. So anyway, in the body, we are going to.
Skip over the part.
Strike that from the record.
As a matter of fact, never show this to me.
Oh God, haven't seen that movie in so long. All right. So we have many different things we can supply here, headers and whatnot. We're going to supply JSON. Okay. So inside my JSON over here, I said that I'm requiring a contact root, and I'm going to permit a first name, a last name, and an email. All right. So that means that my JSON has to be formatted this way. It has to have a contact root, and then I will provide it a first name. I'll provide it a last name, but I don't have to provide it an email. I permit an email. I don't have to have one. Okay? There's no validation in place that's going to fail. It says, oh, you should have had an email. So if I create this, all right? I don't even see the response anywhere. Let's see if the server went through.
Well.
Okay, I feel like I'm only looking at half the screen here. I guess I didn't have it maximized or something. Yeah, it does keep going down. There it is. Okay, so we have an error here. What's our error for? Typo something? Oh. Alright, something I forgot to mention that I should have told y'all in advance. When you're writing a JSON API, don't use that guy.
Where did it show you had an error?
Right here. So it said, this is what tipped me off, invalid authenticity token. Okay. So the problem is that I'm still protecting from forgery using CSRF tokens, and those only get issued on HTML pages. Since I'm not using an HTML page, I would need to use protection from forgery with a different method, but I don't want to go into security stuff, so I'm just going to comment it out right now. Normally what we would do is use what's called a null session to handle that. So anyway, if we do this now, okay. So I just submitted this. I got back this response. I am ID number 4, Jeremiah in Slack, email is null, and I have a created at stamp. So if I made a request to get back my list of contacts again, I am number 4 in the list. Now, what happens if the save fails on a create though? No,
No, I was
no,
gonna
no.
go 404, but it's not the page. It's not.
No, well, but you're close. What is it?
A 400.
No,
Shit.
but it is it is in the 400 range.
It could be.
So, okay, think of it this way. I gave it information to save. Okay? The entity that I gave it could not be saved. So, what type of status code should I get back?
402.
Mm-mm.
Like a 20?
An unprocessable entity. The 422.
It had a 2 in
Yeah. So, if I need to do that, then I need to render the contact. Okay? It failed to save, right? So the status is an unprocessable entity, right? And I'm not going to provide a serializer there. Well, I guess I will. Why not? We'll be consistent. It'll probably do the same thing. I think it's going to anyway, which is cool. But anyway, we need to set up a scenario for it to fail, right? So I'm going to use the same request that I did a minute ago, but I'm going to keep it to where it doesn't have an email, but I'm going to add a validation line here that validates the presence of the email. Okay? So when I come back here, and let's make one for John Macy, and I send this guy. What status do we get back?
422. It showed us that.
We get back our 422. I'm looking for it, it just disappeared on me.
I think it's the get one. Try the get one.
No, it's not the get one, it's a post. Let me do it again. There we go. 422. Okay? Now, notice that the ID came back with null. Okay? That's, for all intents and purposes, correct, right? It didn't get created. But it doesn't really tell us why it failed to create. So that's not very helpful, is it? So, if I come back here, and I take off this serializer, and we do this again, oops, I guess it's not automatically doing that anymore. I guess I have to explicitly say errors, but there. We get back a hash of the error messages. So it says, okay, well, these are all the errors I have for the email attribute. It can't be blank. Now, it can go a step further than that. If I request, I think it's full messages. This might blow up. Oh, it didn't. Okay. So it will actually build you your validation messages for you, so you don't have to write them. So the email can't be blank. It knows that because I said, okay, validate the presence of an email on a contact. Not too shabby, huh? All right.
Could you call on the public folder and make it tell you the 422? As opposed, if you go back to Sublime,
I'm sorry, I'm confused by what you're asking.
go to your public folder right there,
Okay.
and that's where it shows you your 404s, your 422s, and what the message
Okay,
is.
this is a preloaded 422 HTML page. So if a 422 went back that didn't get handled, okay, this is the page that would show up.
Okay. And obviously you can't call on that because we're in JSON anyways, but
Right.
okay.
You wouldn't want to. And most people, when they start writing the applications like this, they will, for instance, if it's an HTML application, will come up with their own 404 pages, their own 422 pages, stuff like that. I'll show you an example of, I think, a place that has one. They used to have a fun one near the Star Wars holidays. Let me see. I hope that page doesn't exist. Yeah, there you go. This is not the web page you were looking for.
Nice.
So they made that themselves. That's their own preloaded one in there. They have it in their public folder.
I thought that was actually a page that you just like remembered or something. I was about to be really amazed right now.
Well, you can believe what you wish. Anyway, so that's basically the story there with JSON responses. This is very basic. A lot more goes into JSON API design than this. You have versioning APIs, namespacing them to separate them from your other actions on your system. There's a lot that goes into them. This is just the surface, but we're not going to go too much into this. But I wanted to show you this and how it worked because I want to show you this. So I'm going to remove that project one more time. And I'm going to generate it one more time. And this time I'm going to scaffold it. Okay? So let's go ahead and add this here. I'm going to just add the faker gem. I'm not going to worry about anything else. Okay. I'm going to generate a scaffold for a contact with just first name and last name. I'm going to migrate it as soon as that decides to finish. Oh God.
What does that mean?
Freaking spring. Did it already stop? Nope.
What is going on here exactly?
So Spring is a system that is built into Rails now as a gem. You can leave it out. What it does is when you start your Rails server, Spring catches that instance and runs it in the background. So even when you stop your server, it doesn't completely stop until Spring stops. And it's supposed to help you start up quicker. So when you have to restart your service, it restarts much faster the second time around because everything's already preloaded. But the problem is that sometimes Spring can crash and then you can't run any Rails commands. So it's frustrating.
It's probably because John Macy has 75 million things open on his computer.
As much as I would love that to be the case, that is not the case in this instance. So now the Rails command will run. We'll migrate it. Okay. And I'm going to come in here and quickly script out a seed generation. So, oh dear God. All right.
Just give it a damn variable.
So let's just
Just bought a drone.
I bet you did.
Pretty excited.
Okay.
So what weight is it? Because you'll have to.
Yeah, I have to register.
Is it a quadricopter?
Yeah, I got a DJI.
You got a small
Phantom, the Phantom 3 standard.
All right, so I have contacts now, and I'm going to start my server. All right. And I'm going to go to my routes file here, and I'm going to make my root the index page for the contacts. Okay. Now, coming over here, we get our contact page, right? This address is the same as this address, right? Okay. That's the same address we were hitting to pull back our JSON list of contacts, correct? Now, I don't know if y'all have done much scaffolding of stuff on your own time to play with Rails. I hope you have. But you'll notice that the scaffolded controller you get back looks a little bit different. Okay? it's got blocks like this in here. Okay, all over the place. These blocks tell the system how to respond to multiple formats. So if a request comes in that's an HTML request, it will return an HTML page. If a request comes in that is a JSON request, it will return a JSON view. So if you look in your views file here, they use a JSON renderer called JBuilder here. They don't use active model serializers. But if you look in here, there's something called index.json.jbuilder, which has instructions to build out the JSON payload. Now you don't have to worry about what that means right there, but what that means for us is we can utilize something called a MIME type. Okay? How many times have you gone to web pages and you've seen .html on the end? That's what the default is. Okay? That's why it doesn't have to be there for this. But because my server knows how to respond to JSON, I can change that MIME type to JSON, and I get back the same information but in JSON. That's the same information that was listed on that page.
What about XML?
I don't know if it'll support XML out of the box or not. No, it won't. But I had those views preset there, so JSON works, and JSON works and HTML works. Okay, and I get that for any number of these. So if I show this guy, okay, .json, okay, so those are MIME types.
So, just, I guess an obvious question is, why would you want to use JSON if these standard Google, Safari, whatever, is not rendering them properly?
Oh, it's not that it's not rendering them properly. It's that JSON's not meant to be shown to the user.
Okay.
JSON's meant to pass data to another application.
Okay.
So I would like if we had had time, I would have probably made a small JavaScript application tonight. I might do it Thursday. That will sit there and make requests to an API, and then take that JSON data and render stuff on the screen using that JSON. Okay, but it's a means of passing data back and forth.
It's not a style.
It's not styled at all.
Okay.
It can't be styled. You don't want it to be styled. It's just pure data.
Pure data.
Okay. All right. So we're going to take a break here. When we come back, we'll be working on the video game portion, and just like always, wow, I said video game. If we have time, video game. But unless there's anything that really comes up that we need to have recorded, this will probably be the last recorded session for tonight. So